Welcome back to True Crime Stories, where we are exploring the case of the Zodiac Killer, one of the most notorious and elusive serial killers of all time. In the previous segment, we learned about the second confirmed murder attributed to the Zodiac Killer, which occurred on July 4, 1969, at the Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo, California. Another young couple, Michael Mago and Dorleen Ferrin, were shot and wounded by an unknown assailant, who fled the scene and called the police to claim responsibility for the shooting and the previous one on Lake Herman Road. Dorleen died from her injuries, but Michael survived and gave a description of the killer. We also learned about the first Zodiac letter, which was sent to 3 Bay Area newspapers on July 31, 1969. The letter contained details of the murders, a cryptic message, and a symbol that the killer used to identify himself as the Zodiac. The letter and the cryptogram sparked a frenzy of interest and curiosity among the public, and generated hundreds of tips and leads for the police. Many people tried to decipher the code, but none of them could find a clear and consistent solution. The killer remained a mystery, and his identity remained hidden. He had challenged the authorities and the media, and had shown his intelligence and cunning. He had also shown his arrogance and cruelty, and had announced his intention to kill again. He had become known as the Zodiac Killer, and he had become one of the most notorious and elusive serial killers of all time. But who was he? How did he create the code? And what did it mean? These are the questions that we will try to answer in this segment as we explore the history, the evidence, the suspects, and the theories of the Zodiac Killer case. The first breakthrough in the case came on August 7, 1969, when a couple from Salinas, California, claimed to have cracked the Zodiac's cryptogram. Their names were Donald and Betty Harden, and they were both schoolteachers with an interest in puzzles and codes. They had seen the cryptogram in the newspaper and decided to try to solve it as a hobby. They spent about 20 hours working on the code, using various methods and techniques, such as frequency analysis, substitution, and trial and error. They finally managed to find a key that revealed a coherent message in plain English. They sent their solution to the San Francisco Chronicle, and the newspaper verified it with the police. The Hardens had indeed solved the Zodiac's cryptogram. The message was disturbing and chilling. It read as follows: "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest, because man is the most dangerous animal of all. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is THE. When I die I will be reborn in paradise, and THE I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to SLOI down, or atop my collection of slaves for my afterlife. Ibiariatameth pity." The message contained several misspellings and grammatical errors, which could have been intentional or accidental. The last 18 letters of the message did not make any sense, and could have been a mistake or a deliberate attempt to confuse the readers. The message revealed the Zodiac's twisted and sadistic mindset, and his belief that he was collecting his victims as slaves for the afterlife. It also confirmed that he enjoyed killing people, and that he considered it a game and a challenge. It also showed that he was aware of the police's efforts to catch him, and that he was confident that they would not succeed. The message did not, however, reveal his identity, as he had promised. He had lied to the newspapers and the public, and had used the cryptogram as a way to mock and taunt them. The Harden solution was published in the San Francisco Chronicle on August 8, 1969, along with an article that praised their achievement and explained their method. The article also stated that the police were still working on the case, and that they had several suspects and leads. The article also appealed to the Zodiac to contact the newspaper or the police, and to give up his killing spree. The article also asked the public to remain vigilant and cautious, and to report any suspicious activity or information to the authorities. The Zodiac, however, did not heed the plea. He did not contact the newspaper or the police, and he did not stop killing. He struck again on September 27, 1969, at the Lake Berryessa in Napa County, California, about 50 miles north of Vallejo. That day, 2 college students, Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard, were picnicking on a small island at the shore of the lake. They were enjoying a sunny and peaceful afternoon, when they noticed a man approaching them from behind a tree. The man was wearing a black hooded costume, with a white crosshair symbol on his chest. He was also wearing sunglasses, gloves, and a gun holster. He had a .45 caliber pistol and a long knife in his hands. He walked towards the couple and told them that he was an escaped convict and that he needed their car and money to go to Mexico. He also told them that he had killed a guard and stolen a car, but that the car was too hot and he needed to change it. He asked them to tie each other up with some pre-cut plastic clothesline that he had brought with him. He then checked their bindings and tightened them. He then told them that he was actually the Zodiac Killer and that he was going to stab them. He then proceeded to stab them repeatedly and then walked away. Brian, who was 20 years old, was stabbed 6 times in the back. Cecilia, who was 22 years old, was stabbed 10 times in the back and 5 times in the front. She died from her injuries 2 days later. Brian survived, but suffered severe injuries and trauma. He later described the killer as a white male, about 5 feet 8 inches tall, with a heavy build and brown hair. After the stabbing, the Zodiac returned to Brian's car, which was parked nearby. He used a black felt-tip pen to write a message on the car door. The message read, Vallejo, the 20th of December 68, the 7th of April 69, September 27-69-6:30 BY knife. The message referred to the dates and locations of his previous murders and the time and method of his latest one. He then drove away in his own car, leaving behind a bloody and gruesome scene. About an hour after the stabbing, the Napa County Sheriff's Office received a phone call from a man who claimed to be the killer. He said, "I want to report a murder, no, a double murder. They are 2 miles north of park headquarters. They were in a white Volkswagen Carmen Ghia. I'm the one who did it." The caller then hung up. The police traced the call to a phone booth at a car wash, about 27 miles from the crime scene. The caller had apparently used a pay phone to make the call, and had left no fingerprints or other evidence behind. The police arrived at the scene and found the bodies of the 2 victims. They also found the message on the car door and the plastic clothesline. They also found a pair of wing walker boots, size 10.5, that the killer had worn and left footprints with. They also found a bloody fingerprint on the phone booth, but they could not match it to any suspect or database. The motive for the killing was unclear, and the identity of the killer was unknown. The police launched an investigation, but they had little to go on. They interviewed the friends and families of the victims, but they could not find any connection or conflict that could explain the murder. They checked the criminal records and the mental health histories of the local residents, but they could not find any suspects or leads. They also looked into other unsolved murders in the area, but they could not find any similarities or patterns. The case remained a mystery, and the killer remained at large. The murder of Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard was the 3rd confirmed murder attributed to the Zodiac Killer, and the most brutal and bizarre one. The killer had not only stabbed them in cold blood, but had also worn a costume and left a message on the car door. He had also called the police and claimed responsibility for the stabbing and the previous shootings. He had shown his audacity and sadism, and his disregard for human life. He had also shown his obsession and pride, and his desire to be recognized and feared. The cryptogram and the stabbing sparked a frenzy of interest and fear among the public, and generated hundreds of tips and leads for the police. Many people tried to identify the killer, using various methods and techniques, such as handwriting analysis, voice recognition, and psychological profiling. They also tried to find clues and patterns in the Zodiac's messages, symbols, and actions. They also speculated about his motives and goals, and his possible connection to other unsolved murders. The police followed up on every possible lead, but they could not find any conclusive evidence or suspects. The case remained a mystery, and the killer remained at large. The Zodiac, however, did not remain silent. He continued to communicate with the authorities and the media, and to claim responsibility for his crimes. He also continued to kill, and to show his audacity and cruelty. He struck again on October 11, 1969, in San Francisco, California, about 50 miles south of Napa. That night, a young couple, Paul Stein and Linda Edwards, were driving in a yellow cab on the way to a party. They were stopped at a red light at the intersection of Washington and Cherry Streets in the upscale Presidio Heights neighborhood. They were unaware that someone was watching them from a nearby car. The watcher was the Zodiac Killer, and he had followed them from downtown. He got out of his car, armed with a 9mm Luger pistol, and walked towards the cab. He opened the passenger door and shot Paul in the head, killing him instantly. He then reached over and took Paul's wallet and keys, and tore off a piece of his bloodstained shirt. He then walked back to his car and drove away, leaving behind a horrific scene of blood and bullets. Linda, who was 18 years old, was not harmed, but was terrified and traumatized. She screamed and ran out of the cab, and knocked on the door of a nearby house. The residents of the house called the police, and reported the shooting. The police arrived at the scene and found the body of Paul, who was 29 years old. They also found several bullet casings and tire tracks, but no other clues or witnesses. The motive for the killing was unclear, and the identity of the killer was unknown. The police launched an investigation, but they made a crucial mistake. They broadcasted a description of the killer as a black male, based on a miscommunication with the dispatcher. This caused them to overlook a white male who was seen walking away from the crime scene by 3 teenagers who were watching from across the street. The teenagers had also called the police, and had given a different description of the killer. They said he was a white male, about 35 to 45 years old, with reddish-brown hair, a crew cut, and glasses. He was wearing a navy blue jacket, a brown sweater, and dark pants. He was also carrying a gun. The teenagers had seen the killer wipe down the cab, and then walk towards the Presidio, a nearby park. The police did not pay attention to their report, and did not search the park. They also did not interview them until 2 days later. This allowed the killer to escape, and to avoid detection. The killer, however, did not avoid attention. He wanted the authorities and the media to know that he was the one who killed Paul Stein. He also wanted to mock and taunt them, and to show his intelligence and cunning. He did so by sending another letter to the San Francisco Chronicle on October 13, 1969, 2 days after the murder. The letter was handwritten in capital letters, with misspellings and grammatical errors. The letter began with the phrase, "This is the Zodiac speaking." The letter contained details of the murder that only the killer would know, such as the type of weapon, the number of shots, and the brand of ammunition. The letter also contained a piece of Paul's shirt, as a proof of his involvement. The letter also contained another cryptic message, consisting of 340 symbols, arranged in 17 columns and 20 rows. The symbols looked like a combination of letters, numbers, and signs, similar to the first cryptogram. The letter stated that the cryptogram contained the killer's name, and that he would not give up killing until the newspapers published the code. The letter also stated that the killer was not afraid of the police, and that he would kill again. The letter also stated that the killer had a bomb, and that he would blow up a school bus full of children. The letter ended with a symbol resembling a crosshair, which was the killer's signature. The letter was shocking and terrifying. It confirmed that the Zodiac Killer had killed Paul Stein, and that he had changed his modus operandi. He had not only killed a single victim, instead of a couple, but he had also killed in a busy and urban area, instead of a remote and rural one. He had also killed a cab driver, instead of a student or a lover. He had also taken a trophy from his victim, and had sent it to the newspaper. He had also created another cryptogram, and had claimed that it contained his name. He had also threatened to kill more people, and to use a bomb. He had shown his versatility and unpredictability, and his disregard for human life. He had also shown his obsession and pride, and his desire to be recognized and feared. He had become known as the Zodiac Killer, and he had become one of the most notorious and elusive serial killers of all time. But who was he? How did he create the code? And what was his name? These are the questions that we will try to answer in the next segment as we explore the history, the evidence, the suspects, and the theories of the Zodiac Killer case. Stay tuned for more after this short break.